Welcome to episode 167 of the Bandhive Podcast. It is time for another episode of the Bandhive Podcast. My name is James Cross, and I help independent artists tour smart. This week on the show, we have a very special guest, Ryan Camuto of Royal Hearts. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. How you doing, James?
Glad to hear that. I'm having a fantastic day as well. Stoked to have you here on the show and talk about some big moves you've been making. No pun intended, because you have been making moves.
I did make a big move. Yes, that's true.
So before we jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about Royal Hearts and how the band came together and what your history as a band is?
Sure. So we're actually starting off, I guess this is we just hit year 4. I think we're into year 5. We started at the very end of 2018. I responded to a Craigslist classified ad, which I know is super sketchy for a lot of people. But fortunately, I met the drummer and the original guitarist at a place that I had been to plenty of times, so I knew that I was safe. We got together a couple times towards the end of 2018 is, I guess, when I would say the official birthday is. It's been a great ride so far. We got put on hold like everybody else did during the pandemic shutdown. But we just used that time to do what we could to kind of build ourselves up to being a band that people want to come see and enjoy following online.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the key things for your band that I want to discuss is how you are able to draw people to your shows, because you seem to do that a lot better than most regional bands can do. And of course, we originally met on TikTok, so you're doing well on the social media side of things as well. And maybe if we have time, we'll get into that. But because Bandhive is so focused on live music and touring, that's what I want to talk about primarily. While we were chatting about what we could discuss on an interview, you mentioned that you moved across Florida. So you're now in Jacksonville, but that's not where you were previously. And in about a year and a half in Jacksonville, you've built up your draw for Royal Hearts to 30 plus people per show. That's fantastic. I know people who've been in the same market for 10 years and can't draw 30 people. So what did you start doing when you moved to build that up?
So I guess before I can start talking about what I started doing in Jacksonville, let's talk about what I was doing in Fort Lauderdale. The two markets are completely different in terms of geography. Fort Lauderdale, like the Tri-County area, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County, and Miami-Dade County, is absolutely massive, and the venues are so spread apart that it could be a 30, 40, or 50-minute drive just to get to a local show, which might not sound bad for people, I imagine, in the Northeast, where they might be used to that, traveling to different states for shows, because they can go from state to state in about an hour. But it was very difficult getting audiences from Palm Beach to, say, drive 40 minutes south or an hour and a half south just to see a 5 or 6 band local bill. Conversely, when I moved to Jacksonville, I was fortunate enough to find myself in a situation to where my wife and I live just about in the center of the city. So if you looked up Jacksonville on the map, and you put in directions and it said you are X amount of miles away from Jacksonville, that's about a mile away from my house. So I'm situated right in the center. What that's allowed me to do is I can be in almost anywhere of the city in about 10 minutes driving highway. And there's approximately 7 or 8 local venues throughout this area. So the second I moved here, what I started to do outside of booking Royal Heart shows in this area was I went to as many local shows as I could and networked my ass off, because I knew that the internet could only go so far. But if you put your face in front of other people's faces and you shake their hands and you're singing with them at things like emo nights and you're just partying with them and having a good time, they're going to respond by wanting to come see you because they see you out in the scene supporting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And a lot of artists don't do that. They go to their own shows and maybe they don't even stick around for the other artists on the bill.
I've seen that. I have been guilty of that before, where we've done shows on a weeknight and we go on at midnight and the next act goes on at 1. Being a school teacher, my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. So there's no way I'm staying at a concert or a show on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night till 2 a.m. and then expecting to be functional at work the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a pet peeve of mine, actually, is local shows that go that late. You go to any major show at a venue that's like above 200 cap, and it's typically done by 11 or maybe midnight.
Maybe midnight if the headliner has like an hour and a half or a 2-hour set, if it's like a really big deal, yeah.
But even then, if you get to the biggest levels, you're talking like amphitheaters, they have a curfew at 11 p.m. because it's outside. And so all the major acts that are moving tickets are playing, like doors at 7, show at 7:30 or 8, headliners like 9:30 to 11.
Yeah, I remember, not to jump the gun, but when we did the We Came as Romans show a few months ago, it was only a 3-band bill, started at 8, and I think it was over by 11. That was almost with like a 30-minute changeover between the second supporting act and We Came as Romans. I think they did like an hour and a half.
Yeah. And I've done the same thing too, like leaving shows early. I thought I was going to have to do that with Keep Flying, who we had on the show back on episode 156. That was because they were scheduled to play till midnight. And I was like, that's way too late. And I just talked to them before the show. I was like, hey, like, I'm really stoked to see you, but just like a heads up, I'm going to have to dip out at 10:30. And then the show ended up going so early that they were done at like 10:35. I'm like, okay, I can stay a couple extra minutes. This is their last song. I'll hang out. So one thing I would say is if you're playing local shows, try to get them earlier. Talk to the promoter or the venue to have those shows be earlier for exactly the reason you said, Ryan, is that nobody wants to stay till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, and I know that, local support and local bands don't get much say in terms of what time a show starts, but book smarter. Look around at the locals. If you're going to do a late show, try to get it on a Friday or a Saturday. If you absolutely have to do it on a Thursday, see if it lines up with a holiday weekend. I know we're going to be looking at booking some things through spring break and summer, and even though my availability is a little bit better during those times, like I'm going to try and make sure we're doing Fridays and Saturdays, Sundays early shows, maybe a Thursday night because people will start to come out, but playing at midnight on a Wednesday in a dive bar to 10 people, it's not worth anyone's time. The $50 to $70 you might get paid, you would have saved just by simply staying in that night.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you have people in the band who take a couple drinks, they're at the bar. That's going to cut into that real quick.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not a saint when I go out. I don't drink before our sets, but afterwards I might have a beer or two because at that point, like I did the job. I'm hanging out, I'm networking. I'm not going crazy, but still, I mean, if you're getting a tiny little door sale or a guarantee, don't eat into it by, drinking and then like on a Tuesday night, you're not making $100 off the door unless you're opening for a national.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great little segue into playing better shows, basically. Because, like you said, it's not up to the artist in most cases, but a lot of times you can talk to the promoter and say, hey, this is all for locals. Why are we playing this late? Can we make it like 7 to 11 instead of 10 to 2?
Yeah, and if the venue pushes back or a promoter pushes back, take the event if you absolutely must, but then try to book with someone else. Make the connection at the venue and try to book it yourself the next time.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Especially if the venue's already working with a third-party promoter, you can do it yourself.
You could be the third party, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And you'll end up walking away with more money if you do things right.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If you can build up your event to be just as good as any other promoter show, you're no longer paying that promoter. You can do it yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And something you mentioned there was you played with We Came as Romans. Now, you've also played with other artists like King 810, Capstan, and Kane Hill. Those are some huge opportunities to get for a band that's just getting their feet wet.
Yeah, and you are missing, we did open for Emery back in July in Fort Lauderdale. One of the cool things about our dynamic with us being so far apart is just because I moved to Jacksonville doesn't mean we aren't a South Florida band anymore. We are now more of a Florida band, which means we have a market both in Fort Lauderdale, the Tri-County area, as well as Jacksonville, and we can split the difference with our distance in meeting in cities like Orlando or Tampa. But back to what you were saying is the past 14 months have been absolutely amazing with like the opportunities that we've been afforded. I know a lot of it comes down to us just doing a lot of hard work, but more importantly, it comes down to people coming out and supporting us. Our first show in Jacksonville, we played to about 15 people. That was about 18 months ago. Our last show in Jacksonville, we played to about 350 opening for We Came as Romans. And I have the receipts to show that we drew just under maybe about a quarter of the cap. I think we pulled about 60 people came out. Most of them were people that we knew personally that either saw us a year and a half ago or that I saw at a show somewhere else. And it was insane being able to perform our songs to people who actually knew us and actually gave a shit for the entire, 25, 30 minutes of our set.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And especially if you have a crowd that big, people start to catch on and say, hey, people actually know this band. People are into this band. That energy can spread through the crowd, which I think is incredibly important. Because I've seen that with touring bands that no one's into the opener, and that makes it way worse. But if there's even 10% of the crowd, 20% of the crowd into the opener, then people start paying attention.
Yeah, it's like the illusion of value. If more people are into it or more people look like they want something, it's going to be more persuasive for other people to get into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what it is. On another topic, that's why I always say bands should charge more than $10 or $15 for a t-shirt. These days, $20 minimum.
To speak on that specifically, my ethos, years ago was buy the shirt for whatever you get it for, sell it for a couple bucks more, make your money back and like a couple bucks for gas. I never sold more than like a shirt or two shirts a show. Like I would have like a one shirt or half a shirt average for long stretches of time. But about a year and a half ago, I mean, this all kind of happened at the same time with the move and et cetera, et cetera. We had a discussion about raising our price to 25. Our shirts are front and back printed. Some of them are multiple colors, some of them are single colors, but they're all good quality. The designs are well done. We work with great artists that make them. Some of them I make myself, but still we put forward a product that I'm proud of selling. And we just started saying that, these shirts are $25. And what I found happening was not only did more people buy the shirts, more people overpaid for the shirts intentionally. I remember having a show at the beginning of 2022 down in Fort Lauderdale. We played this shitty little dive bar. We knew that the show was going to not be like the best sound, but it was probably one of the largest turnouts because they did free shows. It was on a Saturday night. It was our first time in South Florida in about 3 months, and it was downtown. So we played to about 150 people, and I think we probably sold anywhere between like 8 and 12 shirts that night. This one guy comes up, asks me how much the shirt was. I say, they're $25. We appreciate any support. He hands me 220s, says, have a great night. If I was selling that shirt for $12, he might not have even purchased it.
Right. Or at best, he would have given you 120.
Yeah. Which I know at the end of the day, it's, people don't want to look at art as being this commodity that's bought and sold. But when you spend so many dollars on creating the art, driving to the gigs, it's nice when people reciprocate in a financial way, because then you can take that additional money and invest it back into the band.
Exactly. It just makes everything better. You can grow and you can add more value to people's lives if you have money to invest in yourselves. That's such a huge difference. Now, I want to dig in a little deeper on the things you were doing to increase that draw, because bringing about 60 people to a show, that's fantastic for a local opener. Now, you said you started going to shows, but one thing you mentioned in our chat before the interview was also that you joined some other bands. Can you talk about that strategy?
Yes, much to the dismay of my wife, I cannot sit still. And being so far away from my core band, Royal Hearts, I wanted something to do. And the groups that I joined in a much smaller capacity. For Royal Hearts, I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. But for these other groups, I just mostly play the instrument. But I joined a band called So Over It, which is more of that melodic pop punk sound, kind of Mayday Parade-ish. It's fun. It's fun stuff. It's the opposite of what I do in Royal Hearts, where it's more aggressive. This is much more just kind of like dancey music. By doing that, I was able to grow even more as a musician, being in a specific role that was not my normal role. But also I was able to cross-promote most of the material. And one thing that I didn't expect happened. And when I joined that band and I showed them, the Royal Hearts material, because they had never heard of it before, I got 4 new fans. Like, they all bought shirts. They wore them to the So Over It shows. They wore them out with their friends. I never once asked them to do any of that, and I never would ask them to promote another project, because that's kind of unethical, but they did it on their own because we connected as friends, and they wanted to show their support for me, because they knew that the more they supported me, the more I would support them, and the more the group of us would grow. So we've done shows. We actually have I have a song coming out with So Over It eventually that does have a Royal Hearts feature. I do some prominent vocals in the song, but that leads me to another project that I'm in where I don't play bass, instead I play guitar, and that's a band called Divide Inside. This is more of your Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle, sort of like 2000s alt-rock sound with a little bit of that modern metalcore, post-hardcore sound. It's fun. Again, it puts me in a different role, so that way I can take these approaches and apply them to Royal Hearts, but it helps me continue to build a network of people that I can start to kind of circulate between the 3 projects, and will begin to follow me in whatever projects I start doing, whether it's, merchandise designing or copy or any sort of content. People that find me in one place are more likely to follow me in it.
I think that's a great point of It's a two-way street. They decided to support you, and then you support them back. That's really important. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about people leaving shows early. If somebody notices one band always does that, then when that band is playing late, they're going to dip out. They're not going to stay for that band.
Yeah. Even on a more practical note, if you're booking the show or you're the contact with the booker and you see a band consistently do it, honestly, I've saw a band do it once and it wasn't because they left early. It was because the severity in which they left early. They were the opener and they were gone before the second band started. They were looking for them at the end of the night because they were trying to pay them. I was like, they left at like 8 o'clock. I don't think they've booked them again.
It looks bad on the promoter too if they're booking artists that are leaving so early. People notice that and they say, why are you booking this act if they've done it over and over and again? Or even just one time, they don't want to have that happen a second time.
There's a proper way to leave a show early, right? I mean, we've all seen the comedy shows where they do all of the different, insert name of exits, where they just dip out or they turn the lights off and then they're gone. It's like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. If you have to leave a show early, tell the people that you think it's important to tell. Tell the promoter for sure, because they're the boss of the show. If there's a touring band that you were there to support or that you were trying to see, but you just got to go before they go on, something happened, tell them. They might not care. They might care, but at least you did them the polite thing and letting them know. They might still be mad at you. Like, they have every right to still be annoyed because people are entitled to their own feelings, but at least you can say, hey, sorry, I gotta go. Something happens. If you're just having a shitty night, like if you're in a bad mood, whether you're at the show, whether you played the show, or even if it was a show that you wanted to go to, if you're in a shitty mood, don't go. Leave early. I would rather people be annoyed that I left early than see me in like a crappy mood all night and be like, oh, that guy Ryan is kind of a jerk. I don't want to support him.
Exactly. I can relate. There are many shows that I probably should have left just because I wasn't into it. And I stuck around and people could tell I was miserable. So I can relate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have to stay. Like if you're playing, you have to find ways to mitigate that sort of like outlook. Take a step outside, play on your phone for a little bit, try and cool yourself off and get into the right frame of mind to just be social. You're performing from the second you load in till the second you leave. Whether you're on stage or not, you're performing.
Absolutely. And fans can run into you anywhere you go. Promoters can run into you anywhere you go. One thing that I want to talk about is these opportunities that you did get with the larger opening slots. How did you get your foot in the door with the promoters putting on those shows?
The Jacksonville shows up here, at first I thought I could throw as many darts as I could, and whatever stuck. And that helped us a little bit. That's what landed us on the King 810 show. It was a throwing darts. It was our first time supporting a national band in Jacksonville, which was a new market for us still at the time. I had been living there for a few months, but we hadn't done anything notable outside of a couple like just local showcases. But what really turned it was joining those other bands. Truth be told, I had a couple promoter friends that we've worked with before that helped us onto the Capstan show in Gainesville, which we've actually never played Gainesville before. And we haven't been back to Gainesville just because it is out of the way, but we were able to pull about 30 people over to Gainesville for that. But coming over to the Jacksonville stuff, starting to play with So Over It and seeing some of the opportunities that the singer of that band was able to net for that group, I was able to now use that as references for pitching Royal Hearts. I could refer to the So Over It draw because I knew so many of those people personally at that point that I could tell a promoter, hey, give us this opportunity. I can guarantee you we can bring 30 people out. And it worked at the beginning of 2022. We did a local showcase where we supported a band in Jacksonville called Southpaw. It was at a 350 cap venue. The night was about 150 people, and about 30 of them were there for us. 30 out of 150 doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, any band knows that if you can bring 1/5 of the draw, that's your part. If you're the opener and you can bring 1/5 of the draw, like that's your part. That began to kind of parlay us into discussions with bigger promoters. When So Over It earned an opportunity to open for Emery in Jacksonville, I was able to go to the promoter in West Palm and tell them that I would be able to cross promote both shows. And Royal Hearts already having a name for itself in the South Florida area, it was much easier to kind of get that. Once that was secured, I knew that I was going to be able to start having more conversations with that promoter. And we were given the opportunity to open for We Came as Romans. And we were asked for that show We did not pitch for it.
That point is where like you've established that relationship to a point where it's mutually beneficial. You're not leeching off of the promoter. They see value in you as well.
And I'm skipping over one because one did happen over the summer. Royal Hearts did open for Afterlife and Cane Hill. You mentioned Cane Hill earlier. Same deal. Promoter just asked me like, hey, how many people can you bring? I said, honestly, maybe like 30. And then when like 55 people came through the door for us, that's really what opened the door for those even larger opportunities. But small or large, I appreciate any promoter that takes, a flyer on us and lets us, be a part of the bill. Whether it's a national act, a regional act, a big local band, whatever it is.
Yeah. I think I want to highlight here the overall attitude you have towards this, which is what can we do to provide value to these shows? What can we do to help these promoters? Because I see a lot of local bands who just view opening as an opportunity. They say, hey, we're going to get so many fans if we open for XYZ band. That's not how it works. If the show is sold out, then they don't even need another band. Maybe, rarely, they'll add someone. But if it's not sold out, they're going to be looking for an artist who can bring people. And that's why sometimes I used to see this all the time in, the toxicity of a small local scene, because that does happen. I don't know how it is down your way, but up here in Vermont, there were a lot of people who did not approve of musicians who were just like punk, rowdy, rough, whatever. And so you'd have a band that was very unpolished, objectively not that great, opening up for a national act, and people would say, we're so much better than them. We know how to actually play our instruments, blah, blah, blah. Why do they get that show? It's like, well, one, because instead of alienating everyone around them, they actually have friends who come to the show to support them. And two, because they're fun to hang out with. That's really what it comes down to. If you're always complaining about other people getting opportunities, you're never going to get opportunities. But on the other hand, if you build up the scene and people in the scene know, like, and trust you, then they're going to ask you to play more shows. And that's exactly what you've done. And that's so important.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, when I was younger, I had a much more selfish, egocentric way of looking at it because I was younger. I didn't know any better. I was in my teens, in my early 20s. I can't imagine I'm the only person that was kind of a jerk when they were younger. But as I got older and I realized, A, I'm not that good. And B, like, it's a community. People have to kind of put their arms around you and help lift you up so you can lift other people up with you. Like a lot of people use that term crab mentality, especially when they're talking about the core scenes like metalcore, hardcore, post-hardcore, this crab mentality where they just pull everyone else down. It's like, that's stupid. I don't have the energy for that. I would rather take whatever energy that I do have and approach it positively at this point.
Exactly. And it's so much more fun. You feel better.
I do. I mean, we've had shows that had not great turnouts, not that long ago. We're still trying to get into other markets. Like when we go to Orlando or we go to Tampa, I don't expect 30 people to come out for us because we are starting at, square one or square two down there. But the shows are still great. I still have made friends. I've made friends in Orlando that have traveled to see us in West Palm and traveled to see us in Jacksonville. That's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah. And that shows you really made a connection with them. If they're willing to go out of their way, out of their daily lives to do that, that's huge.
Yeah. And I mean, they're great people. They're musicians themselves. They understand. And that's the kind of support that I want to try and do. I'm not going out of my way flyering other bands' shows all over town, but it costs me nothing to share something or to tell somebody about an event coming up. It costs me 0 cents to just say, oh, hey, I know that my band might not be your thing. You're looking for something more like this. Oh, you should check out these guys or these girls. Like, check them out. Cost me 10 seconds.
100%. I want to touch on something you said in that last bit there is that a lot of these people are musicians themselves. And I think what a lot of artists don't realize is that your first fans will be other musicians because they have that appreciation that you just mentioned. It's so huge to recognize other musicians are the people you should be targeting at first. Not saying don't target people who don't play music, but the people who are most likely to invest in you as a band with their emotions, their time, they're going to be other musicians.
Yeah, and that might be a little bit more, genre specific for, different rock genres. I imagine artists that are working to tour with pop or hip hop might not always want to target other musicians. But in the rock community, a single band can be 2 people or 8 people. Right there, you can, I don't want to say target a band like they're just on a checklist, but If you can win over the support of another band, you didn't just get one person, you got maybe 5 people right off the cuff that are going to be in your corner and say, hey, check out these guys. We played a show with them last week and they did awesome. They might share you on their story. They could have anywhere from 10 followers to 10,000 followers. You have no idea unless you're doing background searches on every single person you meet. And if that's something that you do, maybe reconsider your aims for socialization. But be nice to everybody. Target the support of the people that you know are going to appreciate what you're doing, because they're going to be your biggest fans in the beginning, and they'll help you win over those that aren't musicians, the ones that might start coming to shows and spend more money.
Yeah, that's so incredibly important. Recognizing that not everyone is going to enjoy you, but if you find the people who will, that's your gold mine right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, talking about musicians, there are certainly musician supporters of ours that probably don't like our music, but they support us. And there are certainly musician friends of mine who I will support as much as I can, that their music doesn't connect with me, but because they are friends of mine and I can see what they're doing, again, I'm going to support them because I believe in what they are doing, even though I'm not going to be their target audience for it.
100%. That's just something that's so important, is support the artists who you know just because they're good people.
And don't support the ones that are bad people. If you know someone that is, shady or crummy or has an outlook that you really don't agree with, you don't have to support them. That's okay.
Yeah, especially considering like if they do something really bad and they get taken down for it, you don't want to be caught in that fallout.
Even then, like if you think that they're capable of doing something bad and you earnestly think that, maybe you should really reconsider your friendship with that person in general, music aside. In terms of like what type of support that you want, you don't want the support of the guy that's getting kicked out of every show because he's, a jerk and he's doing crummy things. Who cares that he bought all your t-shirts? If he's always getting kicked out, you're going to be associated with the guy that always gets kicked out of the local show.
I feel like a lot of people say, oh, well, we're too small for people to notice. It's like, no, people do notice that.
As the person in the band, you should notice it. You should be the first person to be like, hey, what that person did was not okay. If you feel like you need to intervene and be like, hey, don't do this anymore, and then they stop, cool. If they keep going, then be like, hey, you can't come to our shows anymore.
Yeah. Now, on that note, I'd like to segue into something a little bit happier because we do have a little time here. I want to talk about what you do for your social media and how you are able to keep putting out content consistently. Or I know you mentioned before the interview that you're not posting on TikTok as much anymore, but you're still staying very active on your other channels. How do you go through the grind of creating that content?
Honestly, I just find time. It's not hard to make content. I guess depending on what platform you're on, TikTok is something that I'm still figuring out. I don't know how I want to present ourselves on TikTok because of the medium being vastly different than, say, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. But for those other ones, Instagram is fairly easy if you're just going with static images. If you're playing live shows, which that's the goal here, is playing live shows, helping bands with touring, get your photos done professionally. Have your friends also take photos. Have anybody that has taken photo or video from that show, if you can get them to send it to you, and then sit on it, you impatient bands. I remember back in, the kind of middle days of Facebook, you'd have a show on Saturday. And then on Monday, you would do like a 30 photo dump album of the show. And it would be all of the images. And maybe that worked for a blip in time. But if you can take that, find 3 or 4 photos that look well together. Maybe it's a photo of each member of the band on stage. Create that little slideshow. Write a long caption for some of these posts. Have that be your, hey, thank you so much for coming out. We'd like to thank the sound guy. Tag them. We would like to thank this band. Tag them. We would like to thank XYZ, XYZ. Find things that you can tag. One thing that I like to do is I like a lot of craft beer and I like going to Disney and I like supporting independent designers. So I have all of these shirts from local artists, small artists, and I wear them on stage. And then I tag the ever-living heck out of them when I post them. And sometimes they see it and just respond to the message, oh, hey, cool. And sometimes they reshare it onto their page or their story where they might have thousands and thousands. That's one piece of content that might go to our core 15, 18, 2,000 followers that gets now blasted out to all of these other people who might not care, might click and poke around for a second, or might actually listen and follow. But you can do that with 4 pictures. And if you had a 30 photo set, You can use those every couple days. Drop one, drop a couple. For videos, everyone's phone has a camera. Not every video has to be 1080p shot on some super awesome Sony gimbal something. I don't know anything about photography or videography, but it doesn't have to be anything more than your cell phone. If your cell phone photo quality is bad, figure out a way to make it work for you. Create an aesthetic around the limitations that you have.
That's huge. Think about 10 years ago when Instagram came out and all the filters made the pictures look worse, but that was the cool thing to do.
I have so many photos in my archives on Instagram that I look at them and I think, what an absolute twerp. Who would take a photo of, like, this would be me like at college on campus, who would take a photo of the clouds and throw like this awful filter on it? The framing is terrible. The filter is obnoxious. The caption is like, YOLO. What did you do? Why did you do this? You have to live with this memory that that was the person you were X amount of years ago.
Everyone from 2012 to 2015.
But now it's so many of these apps have so much in the box that you don't need to have a photo editing software to create basic content. I'm not saying don't spend money on, high quality content when you're able to. Do that. But not everything needs to be high quality. And if everything is all of this super shiny high quality stuff, the authenticity of your project can be called into question. It seems much more like a curated art project than it does a real group of people trying to do something.
Exactly. And that's, that comes back to being authentic. If you're putting on a front, people can notice that. And a lot of people don't like that. People want to connect with artists who they can relate to. So if you are just putting up a fake image, they're not going to connect, they're not going to relate, and that's probably going to leave a bad taste in their mouth.
Absolutely, absolutely. Connection on social media is huge. That's why, in addition to having, our pages, about a year ago, I went ahead and we created a Facebook group. It's not a fan club. It's not a street team. They can share whatever they want to share with us, and we can share whatever we want to share with them. So that way, if there's something that's not super important to where it really warrants, this big spectacle of a post, but it's important enough to where your core supporters might want to check it out, it can go into there. You can post every single day in there. You can post once a week in there. Gauge what your audience wants to do. There's a band out there. Their name is Patient 67. Have you heard of them before?
Can't say I have.
So they are a really solid metalcore band out of Perth, Australia. And I can't imagine there's much in terms of local reach, but these guys are massive. They really took a lot of these ideas that I'm stealing from them and showed me how it's done just by observing. They created a Facebook group. They use their page to promote memes and connect with people over different types of music. I have no idea what their daily schedule looks like, but I have to imagine they just keep one of them like in a room all day and just throw him in front of the computer like he's in the Matrix. He's just sitting there like punching in, punching out. But it's me copying them on a much smaller scale, just connecting with people the best that I can.
That's what it comes down to. And I think that you do a great job with that. Obviously, like I said earlier, we connected on TikTok, and that's just part of building that relationship, because first it was TikTok, then Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, you found me on Twitter. Yeah. I think I'd commented on a Twitter post and you're like, oh, hey, it's Royal Hearts from TikTok, and then Facebook, right? And then we even found each other on Submit Hub completely coincidentally.
And then the site I write for got an update and went down, and now I have to redesign everything. Whoops.
That just goes to show, like, if you reach and you stretch and reach into the different corners that are accessible to you, you might run into the same person 4 times. Now, running into you on TikTok did not set up an interview. Running into you on Twitter didn't set up us sitting down to have a chat. As soon as it happened a 3rd time, you see like all of these intersections and you're like, let's chat. Because clearly this person is doing something that keeps putting them in front of me.
Exactly. And to highlight there what you said of this person is doing something where the algorithm keeps showing them to me. Because if it hadn't been that, if you weren't active on TikTok, active on Twitter, active on all these platforms, I would have said, oh, Ryan's just another dude from another crappy local band.
I am that. But I'm more. I am also very funny.
That is true. The instant we got on this call, we were discussing the power outage because we had to reschedule this interview.
Because you caused the power outage of the great state of Vermont.
By sneezing.
You and all of that damn cheddar.
All that snow is actually snot. It's just 1 letter difference, and they're actually only 2 keys apart on the keyboard.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. If you've been snowboarding or skiing, I apologize.
I kind of want to take what we were just talking about and relate that back to live music because real life doesn't have an algorithm, but online, I found a way to put myself in your crosshairs 4 different times. And that's kind of what led to us getting together and talking. Now, imagine if you ran into me at 4 different events in the same city and then found out that I had a show on a night where you were available to come hang out. Like, the likelihood of you coming out is now 4 times greater just because I've been able to see you 4 times and you're more familiar with me. That's what I started doing when I moved up to Jacksonville. I started by looking up where all the local venues were, and I was fortunate that one of them is 8 minutes walking from my house. The other one is 10 minutes walking from my, and then the rest of them are within 10 minutes driving. And I started looking at what events were coming. Some events I went to, I didn't know anybody. Some I had friends that I was making, they were playing the shows. I started going to a venue often enough to where one night they needed someone to run door. I ran door for an event. And then I started going to emo nights. And I know that emo nights are like the bane of musicians because they're like, well, why would I go watch a DJ play songs that I can listen to at home when I could go watch a live band? The truth is they're fun. You go to them because they are fun. And if you go to them enough, the DJs will recognize you and maybe, just maybe, they might play one of your songs early in the night or late at the end of the night, and maybe 5 people hear it. I've been fortunate enough to become friendly with the emo night promoter. It's not officially emo night, but it is called a DJ Sad Songs, right? His is called Duval is for Lovers, which is like a great name. But he's let me come up on stage and kind of like sing karaoke for songs. And that right there put me in front of 200 people that I had never met before, singing a song that I enjoy and that they enjoy and establishing some sort of connection. So then when I go to other places, I've had people recognize me, not from being in Royal Hearts, but from, hey, aren't you that guy that was on stage at the emo? Yeah, that was me. Hey, didn't I see you at this show? Yeah, that was me. And you can start to create these little threads that you can pull back towards you when you need them.
Absolutely. It's an old marketing statistic, I guess. I can't remember what the exact number is. It's something like 27. You need 27 impressions before somebody will buy from you on average. So if you keep making these impressions on people, and obviously being in person is a much stronger impression than like a TV ad or a radio ad or a newspaper ad. So 27 that's the old advertising industry. If you run into someone 4 or 5 times, you're probably either going to end up being friends
or hate them.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be enemies.
But you're not going to be indifferent. You're not going to be like, oh, I always run into that guy. It's whatever. It's going to be, I always run into that guy. He sucks. Or the opposite. He's great.
Yeah, exactly. When I was younger, I just talked to the people that I needed to talk to, and I did my business and I left. I should say, I'm not an artist. I've said this a lot of times on the show.
A lot of people forget that you're not a musician with a band to promote, because whenever we see the man in front of the camera with the guitars behind them, that's the connection they make. But no, you're not. You're just someone that wants to help bands tour smarter through Bandhive.
Yeah, exactly. And I've toured in support roles. I have done merch. I've done tour management. I've done sponsorship, all that stuff. To be fair, I am playing a show in 2 months, filling in for a friend's band. But I have zero interest in being in a band because that's not what drives me as a human being. I like teaching people. So back in the day at shows, I would just go to the show and I would talk to all the musicians, and I wouldn't talk to anybody who's not a musician. Maybe they go to all the shows. Maybe I see them there. I didn't go out of my way to talk to them. I have these 30 other people I should be talking to. And in some ways, that was detrimental. There are now people I'm friends with 10 years later, and if they hear this, they're going to be like, oh, that's about me. And I could have talked to them 10 years ago, and I would have had a friend for 10 years.
I wouldn't beat yourself up over that, because your goal going to shows is very different than a band's. You are in it to teach musicians. The argument could be made that if you're going to a show with 5 bands and there's an average of 4 members per band, there are 20 people at that show that are going to be your priority. And if it takes you the whole night to talk to them and you don't talk to anybody else, it's not like someone's coming up to you saying, oh, hey, James, what's up? And you're saying, f off. Like, your goal is to talk to other people. Now, the band's goal is to talk to everybody. So there are different goals in mind there. Now, did you maybe miss out on some more longevity to some of your friendships? Sure. But who doesn't make a regrettable decision, in their early 20s that they realize as they get closer to their 30s and, so on and so forth. Like that happens.
Well, but here's the other thing, and I'm not upset by it, but a lot of those people were friends with musicians. So if I had invested my time into other people who aren't necessarily musicians, but they know musicians because they're at all the shows, that would have been a great connection to have. Now, that's not to say I'm short of connections, because I have lots of connections and I really appreciate the people that I know. But I want to highlight your point of saying you're there to connect with everybody if you're in a band, because that's the goal. You want people to see you live and they've never heard of you before, but they're going to come see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had that happen. And any musician, any person that's played a show, whether it's a solo artist, a spoken word poet, a guy playing the flute, or a full-on band, if they can get someone to see them once, that's awesome. If they can get that same person to intentionally see them that second time, it's even better. And by the third time, you're hanging out with them beforehand. You've maybe gotten coffee with them outside of the show. Now you are at the point to where you could become friendly with this person within the scope of, being a musician and them being a fan of that music. You have someone that's going to support you and may bring someone new with them.
Absolutely. That goes to the old restaurant industry statistic. I like statistics from other industries. If people come to your restaurant once and they have a bad experience, they're never coming back. But if they have a good experience, there's like a 30 to 50% chance that they come back. If they come back that second time, there's again like a 30 to 50% chance that they come back a third time. If they come back a third time, they are your customer for life unless you do something incredibly wrong. If you can get somebody to come to 3 shows, they're going to keep coming to shows.
Yeah, shows aren't, they might not be super expensive at the local, but they're still not free. You're looking at anywhere between $10 and $20 depending on the show, whether it's a local festival or it's an open mic night or there's a cover or there's not. If someone's coming to see us 3 times, the average cost of our shows is about $12 now, right? That's the average cost. We play a couple cheaper shows when there's small local bills. And then, of course, our opening slots. If someone's shelling out $36 to see us, they're not doing it for the lulz, as the kids said like 6 years ago. They're also going to be the same people that follow you online or buy a t-shirt.
Yeah, 100%. And getting those people to come back and noticing those people. Because if you see somebody at a show multiple times, that's your cue to say, hey, they're coming to our shows. I need to get to know this person so they feel valued by us, by the band, and they keep coming.
And it can be super easy to do that depending on the person. I mean, gauge who they are as a person. But if you see them up front singing along to your songs, you're a local band, give them the microphone for 10 seconds. Who cares if they can sing or scream or not? If they're just shouting like they're having the best time of their life and someone else sees it, or your photographer gets a photo of it, or there's a video of it, a bunch of things just happen. You gave them a core memory tied directly to you. You showed other people how much fun they can be having at your events, and you could have potentially captured some sort of content that can take that excitement and translate it across your different social medias. So that way, the guy that lives in Vermont, that's probably never going to come to a Jacksonville show because he lives in the land of cheese and maple syrup, can see this person having the best time of their life at the show.
Absolutely. I want to highlight that you can do this at any level.
You could do this at a show with 10 people. You could do it at a show with 100 people.
Absolutely. Anyone who knows architects, they do this. They're playing to like 5 to 10,000 people right now. There's a girl on Twitter. Her username right now, I had to search it, is Discourse is Dead. And she's following architects around Europe. And basically, Sam, architect singer, dedicated Broken Cross to her the first night of the tour. And it was like the first time in 5 years they'd played it. And she posted a video flipping out. Why did he dedicate that song to me? So he somehow knew her name, blah, blah, blah. And now, like, basically every night there's a new video of something special. Like one night he took her phone and recorded the crowd for her. All this cool stuff. And every time, I don't even follow her, the tweet goes viral. Like every time Architects plays a show, the next day I see a video of Roxy freaking out because something amazing happened.
And it costs Architects $0 for that promotion.
They are getting thousands, tens of thousands, probably over 100,000 impressions by now because of this.
Yeah, one of the things that we do is we play a cover. You heard the cover. I sent you didn't realize it was a cover when I sent it to you. That's been our closer for quite some time. It's going to get retired soon. But the reason we chose it as a cover is it's a 2-singer song. And there's always an extra mic on stage. And I don't care who grabs it or who catches it. someone is singing it with me. One, because it's the end of our set and I'm fucking tired. Two, it gets somebody that might not ever be on a stage performing involved. And again, whether they're good or bad, they have a great time. And then other people see it. Do we sound exactly like the band we're covering? God, no. We sound like us. We sound like how we would sound playing the song. And the person singing along with us, sometimes they're from other bands, sometimes they're just people at the show. It's a way to connect with that community because everyone that comes to our shows is going to know an Of Mice and Men song. And if they're going to know one, they're going to know that specific song. It's streaming online. People can hear it all they want. Our version's also on Spotify and wherever else people would stream music, go stream it now. But if they come to our show, they can steal a mic and sing it.
Absolutely. I love that. That is such a fantastic strategy. I didn't realize you did the whole 2 mics and invite somebody up thing live.
Well, it works because our drummer also sings some of the choruses. So when it gets to the end, he doesn't sing in that song at all. So I just pull his mic.
That's fantastic that you thought of that and said, hey, let's do this. That shows that you're thinking ahead, you're planning ahead of what can we do to make people feel included and safe in this scene and appreciated.
Bands don't even have to go that far. Get some fucking beach balls. Get some beach balls and put some of your stickers on them or write in Sharpie. We've started off sets where I just kick 5 or 6 beach balls out into the audience. We play emotional music that is heavy. The music content is serious. We perform to have fun. We make sure that we are serious in terms of how we treat our product. We want to make sure that we are tight. We want to make sure that we are entertaining, but we also want to make sure that we are fun. I've played shows where I didn't move an inch before and they were miserable. I've played shows where I barely hit the right notes, but I was having a blast and I had a great time, but I looked terrible doing it. But over, the past 15 years of playing, I've learned how to give and take. There are certain things that I might forego for the sake of being entertaining. And then there are certain things that are no, when I'm doing this one specific part, I need all my concentration. I got to stay still. You balance it out. That's why you have everyone moving around. You have audience engagement. You make sure that whoever's running your lights, if you have someone running your lights, is flashing them and doing things. You make the show engaging, and then you connect with the people, whatever works for your personality.
100%. And I think that's a great point to wrap this up just because we are getting to about the hour mark and I want to respect your time. But Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Really stoked to have you on this episode. Before I let you go, where should people head to check out Royal Hearts?
Well, I wish I could say your local show near you, but I know that Bandhive is available everywhere, right? So that's not going to work. Any social media at Royal Hearts FL. So if you have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, if you type in at Royal Hearts FL into Google, it's all going to show up. On your phone, you could even just say, hey Siri, find me Royal Hearts. We're on YouTube. We just released a song in November called Disaster. We're working on new material. We have a lot of goals coming up for this year, and we're going to be playing some shows throughout Florida soon.
Well, Ryan, that's fantastic. And you say you're not everywhere, but that's for now. Let's work on changing that, get some national tours, and get you out there.
Once again, thank you so much for having us. Obviously, without opportunities like this where we get to talk to people, it becomes immensely harder to connect with an online audience. But ultimately, our goal is to play as many shows as we can for as many new people as we can and make as many friends as we can along the way. Royal Hearts is all about personal growth, and I think it's best when we are all together in order to grow together. So thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, everybody that's listening, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Again, Ryan, thank you so much. Have an amazing day, and we'll talk soon. That does it for this episode of the Bandhive Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and I really hope that this interview with Ryan from Royal Hearts has given you some incredible insight into how you can improve your band's business, how you can network, how you can grow your fan base. There were so many nuggets of wisdom that Ryan shared during this episode that honestly, if you're at this point, I would recommend going back and listening again and taking notes because there was so much to unpack there. It really was an incredible interview, and I have to say, I think it's one of the favorite ones I've done on the podcast so far, just because Ryan is at a point that a lot of you are at, and he has unlocked some of the secrets to bringing his band, Royal Hearts, to the next level. So go back and re-listen and take some notes, please, because I think if you take those notes and then execute on what you've learned in this episode, your band will be much better off. We'll be back with another brand new episode of the Bandhive Podcast next Tuesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, I hope you have a great week, stay safe, and of course, as always, keep rocking.